On the subject, a few questions I want to throw out. And the first one I think is the most amazing question. I actually saw this year, Moshe Feinstein has a whole bunch of answers to the question, and I'm still not satisfied. Moshe Rabbeinu is approached by Kadosh Baruch Hu, and Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I want you to take the Jews out of Mitzrayim. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, you obviously have the wrong address. And for a week, he's arguing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you got the wrong person. I challenge to say that probably HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew Moshe Rabbeinu better than Moshe Rabbeinu. What were they talking about for a week? What was Moshe Rabbeinu's initial reluctance? Aryeh, you look like you have something to say. I can't hear you. You have to turn on your thing.
Me or Aryeh?
Well, he said he was a stammerer. He was a kabbat pevakon Moshe. How can he speak to a Bnei Yisrael? They're not going to understand.
Kadosh Baruch Hu wasn't aware of that. That's something Kadosh Baruch Hu overlooked.
Well, Moshe could have davened for it and he would have healed them, but he didn't. Why didn't? That's the question. Why
he tells Kadosh Baruch Hu, I'm a kabbat pevakon Moshe. I'm not fit for the job. Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't realize that.
Why didn't Moshe ask to be healed?
Okay, that's a good question. I like that question. Maybe we'll have an answer for that question at the end. Sheffer, you want to say something?
He didn't want the position. Usnas harabana. He was familiar with the Mishnah. Usnas harabanas.
I like your answer very much. I want to tell you a story, which, until my interpretation, it's true. After that, then it becomes, that's in my imagination. There's a man who I knew, he's not alive anymore, was a Talmud of Rav Aaron Kotler. And Rav Aaron Kotler sent him to the city to open a yeshiva. And that yeshiva was not successful. It eventually closed. This I knew. This is history. Why it closed, all the pratim, I don't know. I met the man here in Eretz Yisrael, and I had a few times long conversations with him. And he told me the following story. He said, I was learning in Lakewood, and Rav Aaron came over to me, and he said, I think that you should start a yeshiva. I want you to start a yeshiva in the city. So I told Rav Aaron, I said, I'm busy learning. I don't have time to start a yeshiva now. And anyways, I don't think I'm good at it. And, this is going on. Rav Aaron came back to him a few months later, and the fellow was a no taker. He wasn't going to do it. He wasn't interested. And he said to me, I said to myself one day, I said, I don't understand. Rabban is the Gadol Hador, and he's telling me to take a job, and I'm fighting with him. What am I thinking? And he went and he took the job, and he failed. Who made the mistake? Okay, that's history. But I never heard this in advance that he didn't want to do it, and Rabban, so to speak, forced him into it. So I have an opinion on the subject. Anybody want to say something about the subject?
Yes.
It wasn't a mistake.
What wasn't the mistake?
The fact that we would call it failed. That was meant to happen.
Okay. You are a good Hasidic Jew. Okay. I'm not going to argue with that. That's true. But what are we supposed to learn?
Maybe he came with a negative approach to the position, and that's why he didn't succeed.
I believe that you are 100% correct. Now, that doesn't mitigate that which Sheffer said. At the end of the day, everything happens that Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted. We're not arguing that point. But when you're forced into it and you're not doing it out of the bottom of your heart, you're not convinced, it's not going to work. I'll share with you a following horror story that happened to me. I answer my phone sometimes, and there are all kinds of people that call me, some that I know, some that I don't know, and some that I'd rather not know. one of these phone calls I got from somebody that I'd rather not know. I have no idea who the person is till today. Could be it's somebody here on the phone, on the Zoom. Person tells me as follows. Says, this Rabbi Zacharias? So I said, yes. Says, I have a halachic question for you. Sounds like a 35-year-old lady on the phone. So yeah, what's your question? So I'm in the middle of a fight with my husband on what we should do with our child. And my husband says, I have to listen to him because chinuch habanim is a chiyuv on the husband, on the father, not on the mother. And therefore, I have to accept whatever he says. Is that true or not? How's that for just like a miscellaneous question? Any rabbis out there want to help me out? Alan, what are you going to say?
Depends how old the child is.
Yeah, oh, that's an interesting answer. If it's, explain your thought. If he's little.
Because if he's 18 and here in Israel, he's his own person.
Yeah, but the Torah doesn't. That they don't call the rabbi, they have to call the lawyer for it, right? So what am I supposed to tell the person? Yechiel, you have something to say?
I mean, if the Rav was interested in pursuing it, I'd invite the two of them to a meeting.
Yeah, it didn't sound like they were going to make it that far. The conversation, whatever. Anyways, that was the question that I was asked, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge. I don't know. Mordechai, you have something to say? Mordechai, Americus, you have something to say? All right, I'll tell you what I said.
All right. No.
Okay, I'll tell you what I said.
Invite them to a meeting. You need more information.
Okay, that's good. I first thing I did, I said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, help! That's the first thing that I did. And then I took the plunge. And I said the truth. I said what was on my mind. I said, even if it's true that chinuch is the obligation of the man, and the wife has to follow her husband's orders, if she's not on board, it's not possible for her to execute properly. And therefore, you got to get her on board. You guys have to work this out because you have to have a joint approach. Otherwise, the child is going to suffer. Even if she wants to do what you said, if she's going to do it half-heartedly, it's not going to work. I believe that my tefillos were answered because I believe what I said is true. No, it's true. I did not really answer a question. I said that could be that you have to listen to your husband, but the bottom of the day, the question is irrelevant. It's a bad question. You know, it misses the point of chinuch altogether. All right. So this is just a nekuda. If you're gonna have to become the Rosh Yeshiva because Rabban Cutler twisted your arm and told you to do it, but you're not a real believer, it's not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. You may want it to work, but if you don't, Isaiah, we can't hear you. You have to turn on your mic. You have to turn on your mic. You have to get your wife to help you. Okay? Okay, we're listening to you like your wife does. You're on silent. anyways, this is the question. So what was Moshe Rabbeinu arguing about? So no, I agree with Aryeh's answer, but it doesn't really answer the question because we don't necessarily believe that we're fit for the job. HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and he says that you're the guy that's fit for the job. So where's the wiggle room? Where's the place for mistake? You didn't think you could do it, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu says you can, so you obviously can. Okay. I want to share with you a personal story that happened to me. And I say this many times, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'roi Rachamav U'Chasadov, he entertains me throughout my life. And I have things happen to me that are just, I call them hilarious. They're just like very funny because they're so polarized. by profession, I am a shochet. In fact, I happen to be a retired shochet. I actually did it. I worked down the line, and I retired at a young age. I was still a bacher when I retired. Anyways, when I was learning to be a shochet, so the shochtim who taught me said to me, they said to me, I don't understand. Why in the world would you want to be a shochet? You have to get up early. You have to deal with these schwarzes and these dirty animals. You have potential. Your father's a Rav. You could become a Rav. You could be a fine Rav. Why would you want to work in such a line of work? You're wasting your time. And I deflected their comments, however I did. And then when I went later on to get smicha, one of the people who gave me smicha was one of the rabbanim who ordained me as a shochet. And he pulled me aside and he says, Avram Baruch, I've seen you, Sheikh. You're a great shochet. Why would you want to become a Rav? Being a Rav, you have to deal with so many people and so many problems and so many b'diavad. You could become an Erlich Hayid, a Balabas, they could be Michael, Kedusha, Matara, the Klal Yisrael food. Why would you get involved in such a business? Okay. So this is...
I know why.
Why?
Rav didn't want to deal with behemoths.
All right. So this is, but they're saying that the story is true. Both groups of people are telling me that you're in the wrong line of business. Why? Because there's something better to be doing, and you have an aptitude for that. Okay, so whatever. I guess the shochet won because I became a Rav, I guess, instead of a shochet. But whatever. But the bottom line is that you have to believe and want to do what you're doing, and if you don't, that's not good. That's not good.
You're assuming.
But whatever decision a person makes, it has to be the right decision because he made it. Whether it turns out to be right or wrong, it has to be at that particular time. It had to be the right decision because he has made that decision.
But why could it be that he made a mistake?
No, a mistake doesn't come into it. He's made a decision to become a Rosh Hashiva, and it didn't turn out okay. You turned out to be a Rav. It turned out to be wonderful.
Right.
Right.
So that's true. At the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu works it out that you make the right decision, so to speak. I just want to ask you a question, Alan. The light is yellow, and I say I'm going to go for it, and I got my motor. I go through it. I get to the other side, and there's a cop, and he gave me a ticket. Did I get there do the right thing or the wrong thing?
Whatever you did was the right thing. Okay. Whatever you did was the right thing.
So why do I have to pay £200?
Well, because you did.
That's also the right thing.
That's right. It's the right thing. You went through the lights or whatever.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Anyways, why am I telling you this story about the Rabbanim and the Shochtim? The Welt says that the guy who wants the job isn't the guy you should give the job to. It's the guy who's afraid of the job that you should give him the job. The guy says, yeah, it's no problem. I'll do that job. It's very easy. He doesn't really have the right achrayus. He doesn't understand what he's really walking into. It's a person who has trepidation before he takes the job. He's the guy that's going to do the job well because he understands the scope and the achrayus and all that it takes to do it. And that's why he's tipped.
That's why there was no mistake.
That's
why there was no mistake, because he wanted to do the job, but he doesn't want to be chutzpahdik. And he knows he'll do his best. He's not sure about everything. He wants to do
so best. That's 100%. I think you're 100% right.
You did not say what the politics were in the yeshiva and everything else that came into play that made it difficult for him. He had his best.
Okay. That's all right. Again, I'm not arguing, and I don't know really everything that happened with this guy, but if you really believe that this is your job and this is what you have to do and this is what I'm meant to do, You give it your all and then some, and many times you'll be successful. Even people who are super successful, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sometimes could slate them for disaster. I'm not making a rule about things in life. I'm just saying that many times this led me to believe that when you don't really believe in yourself, it's hard to be successful. And sometimes the person, in order to be successful, he has to really not believe in himself. A person who's a leader, the worst thing for him to believe is he's the man for the job.
He's the best.
Because then he's what the word is called in English infallible. There's a vart that the Chassidim say. Listen to this vart. Whoever didn't go to the mikveh today is not going to appreciate this vart. This is a real good Chassidish vart. The Chassidim asked Moshe Rabbeinu, he didn't want to accept the position to be the one to let Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. So why did he accept the position without a blink of an eye to be the one to bring the Torah down from Har Sinai? Why did he say to bring the Torah down from Har Sinai? Whoa, that's too big for me. Get somebody else out there to do that job. Why do you accept that? Here's a question the Chassidim ask, and the Chassidim have a great Chassidish answer. Shefer, you're not going to like the answer, so don't listen even. The Chassidim say, very simple. When it came to Kabbalah HaTorah, so he knew that the Torah was going to be given on Har Sinai. What was Har Sinai? The puniest mountain around. So he said, obviously, to give the Torah, you have to give it with the lowest person around. That's me. He didn't argue because he felt that he fit the bill. Because he was, in his own eyes, he was the Adam V'Kol Adam Hashal P'nei Adama. So I am the man that's fit for the job. Why? Because I'm a nobody. Now, this Chassidish joke, which is not a joke, is a real Nakuda. Why? Because the person who's a leader, he has to understand that he is not involved. He is just a public servant. And Moshe Rabbeinu had to be sure that he wasn't involved. That's a process. That's a process. And that process is a process that took a week's time. I want to tell you another thing about Moshe Rabbeinu's situation. Now, I'm going to say this over. There's a joke, which I think is wrong, but it's very funny, and it's an important thought. There was a rabbi who never took vacation. Never took vacation. And as his 50th year of service approached, he said that at 50 years, he's going to retire. And when he reached the 50th year, they made a big dinner, and all the people in the city came. And people throughout the years asked him, why is it that you're never took vacation? And he said, when I'll retire, I'll let you know. Fine. So the retiring party came, and all those people that throughout the years were nudging him to find out why he never took vacation said, no, are you going to tell us? He said, of course. So he gets up there to say a speech after 50 years, and he says, many of you are wondering why I never took vacation. What would have happened the week that I'm not going to be there because I'm on vacation? So the audience responded resoundingly, nothing. So he said, that's right. That's why I didn't take vacation. Okay? That's, now, why am I telling this to you? Because I saw something which is amazing. And there's a Rosh Hashiva that I knew, he's not alive already for about 25 years, that he was like a wild man, kind of a personality. He was an unbelievable masmid, a geschmacka fellow, and he had like a shtick, like a rough and tumble yeshiva. And he one time made a bet with the boys that he could drive home backwards in under a certain amount of time. Get this. Rosh Yeshiva gets in this car and is whizzing down the street in reverse. It's a true story. And a policeman stops him and he sees this rabbi. This is out of town. This isn't in New York. And he says, Rabbi, where are you going? He says, I'm going home. So he says, so why are you driving backwards? So he looks at the policeman in all seriousness. He says, I have to keep an eye on my boys. And the policeman let him go. Okay. Moshe Rabbeinu, famous story in Chazal. How was Moshe Rabbeinu Zoiche to be the one to take Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim? He saw this sheep run away, and he ran after the sheep, and he brought him back on his shoulders, of holding on, the famous story of that sheep. The question is, one sheep goes away, and you leave a whole flock unattended, where's your responsibility?
Sheep are not moving.
Keep what?
The sheep will not run away.
They'll not run away.
The herd
Why
will
is-
not move.
Why is that?
That's the way life is. They have a dog there, and he keeps them in shape, and Moshe Rabbeinu runs after the one, brings it back. He knows what to do. It's instinct.
Okay, all right. I accept that answer. Anybody else want to give a different answer? All right, so you know what, Zev, we're going to run with your answer. One of the answers that I saw, what?
That's why they're called sheep. They won't be independent.
Okay. And that I want to tell you something. I started off with the story about the Rosh Yeshiva. You don't have to drive backwards to keep an eye on your boys, right? If you have a reasonable institution, you can take a few minutes off and the place is not going to fall apart. When there's a herd, there are people together, and people together tend to stay together. The group will stay together and they're not going to stray. When one person goes away, so then there's no telling where that person will go. That's part of the way that that it works. So Moshe Rabbeinu understood, like Zev was saying, I don't have to worry about the herd. I have to be worried about the individual. So the question is as follows. This is the eye of the shepherd. Moshe Rabbeinu in the Medrash says that he said, if I would have known you would have needed a drink, I would have taken you out for, I would have given you, bought you a soda at the bar. You know what I mean? I would have got you what you needed. How do we keep the people together? And we don't have sheep running away. How do we do that? How do we do that? And I believe the answer to that question is found in a different part of this week's Parsha. Yocheved and Miriam are given unbelievable brachas because of what they did for the children. You know what they did for the children? They didn't murder. Why are you all looking at me like that? What did they do? They were told murder, and they didn't murder. What do they deserve for that? Mel, what do they deserve for that?
It wasn't the fact that they didn't murder. It was the fact they put themselves in direct danger. They would have been killed.
So it's one that somebody says, if you don't kill him, I'm going to kill you. Is that person allowed to kill the other person?
No.
No. So
But
big deal.
So they put themselves in a lot of danger.
They didn't put themselves in danger. They were given this job.
And they didn't do it at the word of Pharaoh. They didn't follow Pharaoh's word.
I understand. But I'm asking you a question. Did they have a choice?
Yes. They had a choice.
I want to tell you something. Sometimes I get asked questions and I am very moved by the responses that I get from those who ask the questions. Not such a long time ago, someone called me up and they told me that their boss wants to know a piece of Lashon Hara. And they're afraid if they don't tell him, the boss is going to fire them. Is there any heter? So I told the person that you say twice a day, at least, the answer to this question. B'chol nafshecha u'b'chol mo'odecha. You have to give away all of your money, not to be over on a love. And he didn't say, okay, I'll get a different rabbi. That's not what he said. He said, thank you very much. And he didn't cave in, and he still has the job, Baruch Hashem. Okay? Does that guy deserve eternal bliss in this world and the next?
Yes.
Why is that?
He still had a big thing to overcome.
Yeah, I understand.
No,
I understand. One second. I didn't say it doesn't deserve Olam Haba, and I didn't say that I would be able to be oimid in that Nisayan, but it's a black and white question. It's not like, I didn't say it's an easy question.
You get graded on your effort more than anything else.
No, I agree. I agree that he deserves Olam Haba for it. I said, does he deserve to have Kahuna and Malchus in this world for it? Sachakol, he did what it says in Kriyat Shema.
Which is what a coin and a melch have to do.
And so do you.
Right. But it's much more important for the coin and melch to do.
Well, I understand. But is that Sachakol? Is that the answer to the question? Do you think that's the answer?
I think so.
Okay.
We saw there were stories of kings and the Kohen Gedolim who didn't do what was in black and white. Someone who can stand up to the test.
I didn't say that they did something small. I didn't say that I think it's that I could do it too. But I'm just asking, is that something which is really super extraordinary or not?
It's a test for his validity for the job.
Well, this is a test which we expect from everybody to pass, the bottom line. I would like to offer the answer, which I believe is the answer to the question. Stanley, do you want to offer an answer? Okay. If are you on Peretz's side? Do you accept the question as a question, or you think that they deserve it? Mr. Lehman, what do you say? Okay. I have a very respectful group here today. That's all.
You're courageous.
Courageous group?
Very courageous, yes. Because
okay,
it was a very big threat, a real threat.
Yes, okay. I would like to answer the question, which I believe the simple answer to the question. If you look in the pasuk, and you look at Chazal, they hint to the answer. Why was she called Shifra and why was she called Pua? Shifra shaya mishaperes esavalad, Pua shaya amir Pua. They went the extra mile to save the person and do the bare bones minimal when there are bullets whizzing all around you is one thing. But to go the extra mile that you're not mechuyev to do under fire, that shows that you really mean it. That's a whole different level. So it could very well mean that many people would be makayim that which what it says. I want to share with you a story that happened this week. And it's a beautiful story. You know, sometimes we say mitzvahs come our way, and sometimes we say mitzvahs don't come our way. I'm going to tell you a story, and I want that we should all learn a lesson from this story. There was a person who was proposed the shidduch. And in the circles where this shidduch goes about, so there was a question how much money one of the sides was going to give to help the family start off. And there was some negotiations done. And the person, the Das Torah that was involved, I'm not getting involved in all the pratim, it's not important, said that this isn't enough money and we cannot have the shidduch happen. And then one of the people involved in the shidduch felt that really the other side really has goodwill. They don't have the ability. And maybe we should let HaKadosh Baruch Hu foot the bill. It'll work itself out. It's a true story, happened this week, okay? And they called up somebody who knows the other side to find out exactly what's really going on. They're trying to weasel out of an obligation. You know what's really going on? So the person told them what he felt their financial situation is. And he asked, why are you asking? So the person told him, this is the problem. So that's the amount of money that's holding up the shidduch. I'll put that money down. Now, they didn't get engaged yet, okay? I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the story. So what do we learn from that story? He was given a job to find out how much these people can do. Was a mitzvah thrown his way? There are many people that wouldn't have seen that as a signal that he was asking him to get involved. And by the way, the person who said he'll pay the bill, he doesn't have much money himself. I don't know where he's going to pay the bill from. You know, that's noch a shayla, but that's nothing to do with it. It didn't stop him from putting his money where his mouth is, so to speak, and saying that I'll fit the bill. Going the extra mile and showing that you really care, that is a real leader. That is a real leader. Being selfless. Moshe Rabbeinu was selfless. He didn't want the job because he wanted to make sure he was not, because he deserves it. And Shifra and Puah, they got Melucha and Kahuna because they weren't looking to Yotze Zayin. They were looking to do because they cared. Moshe, Aaron, Yocheved, these are people that cared. We learned this week's Parshas and Shovim, a special aspect of Beral V'Chavera, where we Zeicha, that in these weeks we learn to have an extra measure of our Ben Adam L'Chavera.